Navigating the world of power, it's one of those skills that almost everyone gets wrong. Seriously, it's not about being the most charismatic person in the room or having this raw, cutthroat ambition. It's actually a quiet, structural game. And the crazy part, most people lose before they even realize they're on the board. So let's pull back the curtain and really look at this hidden architecture of value. Wow. Powerful people decide your value before you finish your first sentence. That's the opening line from our source material, and it is a gut punch, right? It tells you right away this isn't about what you say, it's about a silent, instantaneous calculation that's happening in the background, way before you even get to your big pitch. And this is the question they're asking. This is the whole test, boiled down to one thing. Does this person increase my leverage or drain it? See, powerful people aren't really looking for friends. They already have plenty of those. They're managing leverage. Every single person, every single interaction, it's filtered through this one critical lens. Are you an asset or are you liability? That's it. All right, so let's break down this silent calculation, this initial test, because this is where the vast majority of people get filtered out without ever knowing why. They walk into the room thinking it's an emotional interview, a chance to connect, when in reality, it's a structural audit. Okay, this slide right here, it just nails the core mistake. Most of us, we default to that emotional approach you see on the left. We try to be liked, we look for validation, we want to show off our ambition. And that feels natural, right? But to someone in a position of power, it's just noise. The winning strategy, the one that actually works, is the structural one on the right. It's a total shift in focus from me to the system. You stop asking, how can they like me, and start asking, how can I make this whole operation run smoother and stronger? And this really gets to the heart of it. A powerful person already has friends. What they need are assets. Think about it. A friend, in this context, takes up emotional energy. They take up space. An asset, on the other hand, is like a force multiplier. They don't take space, they create it. They reduce friction, they make things more efficient, they stabilize the entire environment so that power can operate more effectively. And this brings up a really crucial point about what's actually rare. Compliments, big ideas, even being super smart. You know what? That stuff's common. It's just more noise. The signal that cuts through all that? Usefulness. Wrapped in restraint. It's that ability to deliver real value without needing a pat on the back or creating a bunch of drama around it. That is the thing that gets noticed. This is exactly why trying to be the star of the show is such a bad move. I mean, when you walk into a room and try to prove you're the smartest person there, you think you're looking impressive. But power doesn't see an asset, it sees a future rival. Your ambition gets quietly refiled in their mind as a long-term liability. So how does power even test for these qualities, right? It's not like they give you a quiz. They don't use direct questions. Nope. They test you with ambiguity. They want to see what you do when the rules aren't spelled out. They want to see your default state, how you handle yourself when you don't have a clear script to follow. And these are the tools they use for the test. They're super subtle. Maybe you get a small task, but the instructions are really vague, or that super important email you sent. It goes unanswered for days. Maybe you get left out of a key meeting on purpose. The question is, what do you do? Do you panic? Do you start asking everyone for validation? Or do you stay calm, deliver the value you can, and leave no drama in your wake? Your reaction to these little pressures, well, it reveals everything. Okay, so let's say you've passed that initial test. The next level of the game is about going from just being useful to being structurally necessary. It's about weaving yourself into the system so seamlessly that your presence feels, well, indispensable. And to do that, you have to follow 4 pretty critical laws. First, complement, don't compete. Your job is to find the gaps your superior hates dealing with and just fill them. Second, discretion. Real loyalty isn't about always agreeing with them. It's about how you handle sensitive information when no one's watching. Third is all about timing. You don't speak up just to be heard. You speak only when your input can actually change the outcome. And finally, number 4, pace your value. You let people discover how competent you are over time. Because think about it, value that's discovered always feels way more authentic than value that's just announced. In the end, your real value is measured by a super simple test. If you were to disappear tomorrow and nothing changes, you were basically just decoration. But if your absence causes friction, if it slows things down, if it makes things less clear, then your value is undeniable. A true asset never has to shout about how important they are. Their absence does all the talking for them.
Really, at its core, your entire function can be boiled down to this: reduce the cognitive load of the people above you. Powerful people are operating under a ton of mental pressure. If dealing with you requires a lot of explanation or emotional handholding or constant check-ins, you're a cost. You're adding to that load. But if you bring clarity, you bring efficiency, you bring momentum, you become a priceless asset.
All right, but getting close to power isn't the finish line. In fact, that's where the real danger starts. Welcome to the inner circle. The rules here are totally different, and they are way less forgiving. Surviving in here, it requires a whole new level of calibration. And this reveals a pretty fascinating paradox. As you get more valuable and closer to the center, the instructions you get actually become less clear. So why would they do that? Because at this stage, power isn't testing your competence anymore. They already know you're good. Now, they're testing your autonomy and your maturity. And surviving in here means you have to live by a new set of rules. You have to handle mistakes with surgical precision, own your mistakes instantly, and contain their mistakes silently. Your loyalty flows up, but you stay neutral with your peers and courteous to people below you. You become the go-to person who absorbs all the complexity and brings back simple solutions. But honestly, above all else, you have got to manage your ego. Arrogance is the single fastest way to get kicked out of the inner circle. Now, this is a huge warning. If a powerful person confides in you, if they show a moment of what looks like vulnerability, that is not an invitation to be their best friend. It's not gossip time. It's a test of your stability. The only correct response is grounded containment. You listen, you clarify, you absorb the pressure without passing it on. You are a stabilizer, not a confidant. And that brings us to the final and maybe most masterfully executed stage of all, the one almost nobody gets right, the separation. How you leave a position, whether it's your choice or not, is what solidifies your entire reputation, for good. And the difference is just stark. Look at this. The emotional exit is a total disaster. It's bitter, it leaks sensitive information, and it burns bridges you didn't even know you'd need later. But the disciplined exit? It's clean, it's quiet. It puts discretion above everything else. And what it shows everyone is that your stability wasn't tied to your job title. And that kind of personal sovereignty is deeply, deeply respected. The reason a clean exit is so critical really comes down to this single idea. Your future is decided in conversations you will never, ever hear. Powerful people talk to each other. They're going to ask, so, how did they handle the exit? Your composure, your discretion in that moment, that becomes your permanent, portable reputation. You know, this all points to a larger truth, which is that you have to see these relationships as seasons. They're temporary. Nothing is permanent. And the person who really understands that is always prepared for change. They stay unattached, and they can navigate those transitions with real strength and dignity. And this brings us to the final and maybe the most essential truth of this whole thing. The proof that you really navigated this world correctly, the highest compliment you could ever receive, will never actually be spoken to your face. This is it. This is the legacy you're aiming for. This quiet, simple statement, said in a room you'll never be in, long after you're gone, that is the highest praise possible. It means you master the art of adding value without adding friction. You are a true structural asset. And that right there is the architecture of invisible value.